Good evening, and welcome to this urgent special report from the Strategic Daily Brief, where the world is watching as a seismic shakeup in the heart of American power unfolds right before our eyes. What we're witnessing tonight is nothing short of a political earthquake that has jolted the White House, rattled the halls of Congress, and sent shockwaves through global markets and security alliances. Just hours ago, President Donald Trump unleashed a bombshell announcement on social media, firing his Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, in a move that has ignited fears of escalating instability at America's borders, within its economy, and across international relations. This isn't just a cabinet reshuffle. It's a high-stakes purge that exposes deep fractures in the administration's iron-fisted immigration agenda. And it comes at a moment when mass deportations are surging, tensions with Latin American nations are boiling over, and domestic unrest is threatening to erupt. Picture this. Kristi Noem, the once unassailable enforcer of Trump's America First border crackdown, reduced to learning about her own dismissal while sitting in a car en route to a police conference in Nashville. She steps out, delivers a speech laced with vague hints of a new role, but the damage is done. The president has already named her replacement, Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, a former MMA fighter turned hardline loyalist who's vowed to amp up the deportations even further. Sources inside the White House tell us this decision was brewing for weeks, fueled by a cascade of scandals that have destabilized the Department of Homeland Security at its core. From allegations of a forbidden affair with a subordinate to lavish spending on personal ad campaigns costing taxpayers $220 million, Noem's leadership has been a tinderbox, and Trump's tweet lit the match. But let's zoom out. This firing doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's exploding amid the largest immigration enforcement operation in U.S. history, with daily arrest quotas hitting 3,000 and ICE agents conducting raids from coast to coast. Noem, who rode into office on horseback in dramatic ads filmed at Mount Rushmore, has overseen the overhaul of FEMA, slashing its workforce by a third and imposing draconian cost controls that delayed disaster relief in hurricane-ravaged states. Critics are screaming that her mismanagement has left America vulnerable, with experienced leaders fleeing and a culture of fear gripping the agency. And now, with her out, the question hangs like a storm cloud. Who controls the levers of national security? Mullin, with his tough guy persona and support for deporting even children alongside their undocumented parents, signals an even more aggressive pivot. But his past comments on January 6th, calling it a riot but urging the nation to move on, have already sparked backlash from Trump's die-hard base, who see any nuance as betrayal. The urgency here cannot be overstated. As we speak, border crossings are spiking in response to rumors of this power vacuum, with migrants in Mexico and Central America scrambling to cross before Mullin's iron fist clamps down. Stock futures are plunging in after-hours trading, with sectors like agriculture and construction, reliant on immigrant labor, bracing for massive disruptions. Global leaders are on high alert. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has issued a stern warning about potential trade retaliations, while European allies whisper concerns over transatlantic security pacts fraying under U.S. internal chaos. This is breaking news at its most volatile, where one tweet from the Oval Office can unravel alliances built over decades. Stay with us as we dive deeper into this unfolding crisis. Our correspondents are live from Washington, the southern border, and Wall Street, bringing you exclusive insights. We've got expert analysis from former intelligence officials and economists who warn this could trigger a domino effect, escalating from a personnel change to a full-blown geopolitical meltdown. The stakes are sky high. America's borders, its economy, and its standing on the world stage are all teetering on the edge. This is not politics as usual. This is a red alert moment that demands your attention. We're tracking every development, every statement, every market tick. Don't go anywhere. The crisis is accelerating, and we're here to guide you through it. In the blink of an eye, the Trump administration has been thrown into turmoil, with Kristi Noem's abrupt firing exposing the raw nerves of a presidency laser-focused on immigration, but plagued by internal warfare. Let's break down exactly what just happened, step by step, as the events cascaded over the past few days like a runaway freight train. It all ignited during a tense Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on Tuesday, where Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana grilled Noem on her department's ballooning expenditures and border vetting failures. Noem, unflinching in her signature style, affirmed under oath that President Trump had personally greenlit a controversial $220 million advertising blitz featuring her own image in dramatic poses, raids, border walls, even her visiting El Salvador's mega prison after deporting Venezuelan migrants. Yes, she said, her voice steady, but that simple affirmation would prove fatal. By evening, the president was fuming. In a phone call to Kennedy, Trump vented his rage, insisting he was never informed about the ads and certainly didn't approve them. Her version and the president's version are decidedly different, Kennedy later revealed to reporters, his words dripping with the gravity of betrayal. White House insiders confirmed Trump felt blindsided, viewing Noem's claim as a direct challenge to his authority, a cardinal sin in his orbit. This wasn't just about money, it was about loyalty, the currency that defines Trump's inner circle. Noem's scandals had been piling up like debris after a storm. The alleged affair with Corey Lewandowski, her unpaid subordinate, both denying it vehemently while married to others. The executive jets racking up millions in taxpayer dollars. The feuds with heads of Customs and Border Protection and ICE, who chafed under her micromanagement. And the botched response to killings in Minneapolis, where she labeled victims Renee Good and Alex Pretty as wannabe terrorists, injecting white nationalist rhetoric into official statements. Then came the hammer blow. On Thursday morning, as Noem headed to that Nashville conference, her phone rang. It was Trump himself, delivering the news in his trademark blunt style. She was out, reassigned to a nebulous role as special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, focused on drug trafficking but stripped of real power. Minutes later, Trump's social media post made it official. Proud to announce Senator Markwayne Mullin as our new Secretary of Homeland Security. Kristi did great work, but Markwayne will take it to the next level. Noem, sources say, sat stunned in her vehicle for a brief moment before proceeding with her speech, obliquely referencing an honor of my life in a memo to DHS staff. Lewandowski is packing his bags too, his exit underscoring the personal entanglements that doomed her. Mullin, the rugged Oklahoman with a background in mixed martial arts, steps in as a Trump stalwart who's backed extreme measures like requiring immigrants to carry papers and defending aggressive tactics in the Minneapolis incidents. But his appointment isn't without controversy. His nuanced take on January 6th has moderates in the GOP cheering, while purists grumble. Senate leaders like Tom Tillis are already praising him online, calling him a great guy, and even noting his love for dogs, a subtle jab at Noem's past puppy shooting scandal from her gubernatorial days. This sequence of events has unfolded with lightning speed, catching even seasoned Washington watchers off guard. DHS officials are breathing sighs of relief, one anonymously calling it long overdue, due to Noem's lack of qualifications and ego-driven chaos. FEMA staff, decimated under her cuts that axed grants, training, and a third of the workforce, are reportedly toasting her departure, describing a toxic environment of polygraphs for leakers and delayed aid to disaster victims. The overhaul she spearheaded, requiring her personal sign-off on contracts over $100,000, echoed her South Dakota controversies, where similar heavy-handedness led to audits and resignations. As the dust settles, or rather, as it kicks up into a full gale, the transition is already sparking operational hiccups. Border agents report confusion over chain of command, with arrest quotas unmet amid the leadership vacuum. Migrants at the southern border are rushing crossings, fearing Mullin's promised crackdowns. And internationally, allies like Canada are monitoring closely, worried about spillover effects on trade and security. This is what just happened, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. The real dangers are surging beneath the surface, threatening to pull the entire nation under. This shakeup isn't merely a Washington drama. It's extremely dangerous, a powder keg that could detonate across multiple fronts with catastrophic consequences. At the heart of the peril is the fragility of America's national security apparatus. With Noem out and Mullin in, the Department of Homeland Security, guardian of borders, cybersecurity, and disaster response, is in flux at a time when threats are multiplying. Mass deportations, already at fever pitch with 3,000 daily arrests, risk spiraling into chaos without steady leadership. Imagine ICE raids grinding to a halt mid-operation due to conflicting orders, or FEMA's gutted teams fumbling the next hurricane, leaving millions exposed. Noem's mismanagement had already created vulnerabilities, delayed relief in storm-hit areas, interagency feuds that hampered intelligence sharing. But her firing amplifies them, creating a window for adversaries to exploit. Why so dangerous? First, the immigration front. Trump's agenda hinges on aggressive enforcement, but this purge signals weakness. Cartels in Mexico are already capitalizing, smuggling more fentanyl across porous borders amid the confusion. Venezuelan and Haitian migrants targeted in Noem's campaigns could flood in greater numbers, overwhelming resources and igniting humanitarian crises. Mullin's hardline stance, deporting families en masse, might escalate violence, with reports of protests brewing in sanctuary cities like Los Angeles and Chicago. Domestically, this fuels polarization. Far-right militias are mobilizing online, viewing Noem's ouster as a deep state betrayal, while progressive groups decry the incoming regime as even more draconian. Geopolitically, the risks escalate exponentially. Latin American nations, already strained by U.S. deportations, see this as instability they can leverage. El Salvador's president is demanding concessions on aid, while Mexico threatens tariffs if enforcement turns brutal under Mullin. China's state media is gleefully amplifying the chaos, portraying America as a declining power unable to manage its own house. Cyber threats loom larger. Russian hackers, emboldened by DHS distractions, could strike power grids or election systems, as seen in past breaches. Economically, the danger is palpable. Labor shortages from deportations have already jolted industries. This leadership void could exacerbate them, leading to supply chain breakdowns. And personally, for everyday Americans, the stakes are life-altering. Heightened terror alerts, disrupted travel, or even stockpile runs if border instability spikes inflation. This isn't hyperbole. Former intelligence chiefs warn that such internal upheavals invite external attacks, turning a personnel change into a national security nightmare. The danger is real, it's immediate, and it's accelerating toward unknown horrors. Turning now to the market shockwaves rippling out from this White House bombshell. Wall Street is in full panic mode, with indices plummeting as investors grapple with the uncertainty unleashed by Noem's firing. The Dow Jones has shed over 800 points in a single session, a brutal jolt that echoes the volatility of past political crises, while the S&P 500 is down 3.2%, erasing gains from the week's earlier tech rally. Nasdaq futures are tumbling even harder, off 4.1%, as big tech braces for potential disruptions in global supply chains tied to immigration policies. This isn't abstract. Traders are dumping shares in agriculture giants like Archer Daniels Midland and construction firms like Caterpillar, fearing acute labor shortages if Mullin's aggressive deportations ramp up without Noem's stabilizing, if controversial, hand. Why the market frenzy? At its core, Trump's immigration crackdown relies on immigrant labor in key sectors: farming, hospitality, manufacturing, contributing trillions to GDP. Noem's tenure, despite its flaws, provided a predictable framework. Her ouster injects chaos. Analysts at Goldman Sachs are warning of a deportation drag on growth, projecting a 1.5% GDP hit if enforcement escalates unchecked, with inflation surging as food prices spike from unpicked crops. Bond yields are soaring, with the 10-year Treasury note jumping 25 basis points, signaling bets on Federal Reserve intervention to stem the bleed. Currency markets are equally rattled. The dollar has weakened 1.8% against the euro, as foreign investors pull back from U.S. assets amid fears of trade wars with Mexico and Canada. Sector by sector, the shocks are intensifying. Energy stocks like ExxonMobil are volatile, with border instability threatening pipelines and imports from Latin America. Healthcare providers, reliant on immigrant nurses, are seeing shares crater. United Health Group down 5%. Even crypto markets are convulsing, with Bitcoin dipping below $80,000 as risk-averse traders flee to gold, which has surged to record highs. Hedge funds are shorting the market en masse, with one prominent manager telling us anonymously, "This purge exposes Trump's house of cards. Immigration is the economy's underbelly, and it's bleeding out." Broader implications? Emerging markets are feeling the pain, with Mexican peso futures collapsing 4%, dragging down Brazilian and Colombian assets. European bourses like the FTSE and DAX opened lower, contagion spreading as U.S. turmoil undermines global confidence. Economists at Bloomberg project a potential $500 billion evaporation in market cap if the transition drags on without Senate confirmation for Mullin. Retail investors are frozen, robo-advisors issuing sell alerts, while pension funds recalibrate amid the storm. This market shock isn't cooling, it's heating up, with after-hours trading hinting at more bloodletting tomorrow. Investors, buckle up. The economic fallout from this political firestorm is just beginning to scorch the landscape. As this crisis hurtles forward, let's confront the chilling escalation scenarios that could transform a cabinet firing into a full-scale national and international cataclysm. In the worst-case trajectory, border chaos erupts immediately. With DHS in limbo, migrant caravans, already forming in Guatemala and Honduras, could overwhelm understaffed ports, leading to violent clashes with National Guard troops deployed under Mullin's interim orders. Protests in U.S. cities escalate into riots as immigrant communities rally against deportations, clashing with counter-demonstrators emboldened by Trump's rhetoric. Imagine sanctuary cities like New York declaring emergencies, federal agents raiding neighborhoods, and lawsuits flooding courts, paralyzing enforcement. Internationally, the powder keg ignites. Mexico retaliates with border closures, halting $600 billion in annual trade, crippling auto manufacturers and triggering shortages. China exploits the distraction, ramping up espionage or Taiwan provocations, while Russia tests NATO with Ukraine incursions, betting on U.S. disarray. Cyber attacks surge, Iranian hackers targeting FEMA's weakened systems, causing blackouts in disaster-prone areas. Domestically, economic escalation hits hard. Labor voids spark strikes in agriculture, food inflation soars 20%, and stock markets crash into bear territory, wiping out retirements. Politically, the GOP fractures. Trump loyalists revolt if Mullin softens on January 6th probes, sparking primary challenges in midterms. Impeachment whispers grow if scandals deepen, destabilizing the administration further. Humanitarian nightmares unfold. Detention centers overflow, family separations resume en masse, drawing UN condemnation. In the direst path, this spirals into a constitutional crisis. States defy federal orders, Supreme Court intervenes, and militias arm up. These scenarios aren't far-fetched. They're accelerating as we speak, demanding swift action to avert disaster. For you, our viewers, this upheaval strikes closer to home than you might realize, infiltrating daily lives with urgent, tangible impacts that demand preparation. If you're in border states like Texas or Arizona, brace for heightened patrols and potential traffic snarls as agents shift under new commands. Your commutes could lengthen, local economies stutter from disrupted cross-border commerce. Families with immigrant roots face anxiety spikes. Deportation fears could upend jobs, schools, and communities, with legal aid hotlines overwhelmed. Even if you're far from the frontier, economic ripples hit your wallet. Grocery bills climb as farm labor dwindles, gas prices fluctuate with trade tensions, and investment portfolios shrink amid market volatility. Personal security feels the strain. With DHS distracted, cyber threats to banking apps or smart homes rise, urging password updates and vigilance. Disaster-prone areas, Florida coasts, California wildfires, worry over FEMA's readiness, prompting stock-ups on supplies. For parents, school safety drills intensify amid unrest fears. For workers in hospitality or construction, job instability looms. Mental health tolls mount. Stress from news overload calls for community support. This crisis touches everyone, escalating personal risks while underscoring resilience. Stay informed, engage locally, and prepare. Your world is shifting, and adaptation is key. On the global stage, this power play heralds a strategic shift that could redefine alliances and dominance for years. America's credibility wobbles as internal purges signal unreliability, emboldening rivals like China to accelerate Belt and Road initiatives in Latin America, poaching influence from U.S. deportation fallout. NATO allies, already jittery, may hedge with independent defense pacts, fracturing transatlantic unity. In the Americas, Mullin's envoy role for Noem masks a tougher stance, potentially isolating the U.S. as countries like Brazil pivot to BRICS. Power vacuums invite aggression. Russia eyes Arctic gains, Iran nuclear advances. Economically, global supply chains reroute away from U.S. dependency, boosting Asia's rise. Yet opportunities emerge. Trump could leverage this for stronger bilateral deals, but risks abound. This shift accelerates a multipolar world, where U.S. hegemony erodes unless steadied swiftly. In closing, as this whirlwind of political upheaval continues to spin, remember, what began as a Senate grilling has mushroomed into a crisis threatening borders, markets, and global order. We've tracked the explosive fallout, from Noem's dramatic downfall to Mullin's ascent, and the dangers lurking ahead. Stay vigilant. The story evolves by the hour. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for real-time updates and in-depth analysis.